According to the Federal Reserve, nominal income in the United States has increased in recent years. Yet those same data show that tens of millions of people still cannot absorb a small financial shock in their everyday lives. This contradiction leaves many middle-class households deeply confused. You earn more money than before, but the feeling of safety never arrives. If you are between 25 and 45 years old, have a stable job, and earn what most people would call a good income, you have probably thought this at some point. I should be doing better by now. Not rich. Just a little more comfortable. A little less anxious. But instead, every month feels like a new balancing act. The most frustrating part is this. No one is telling you that you are doing something wrong. You are doing exactly what modern society encourages. Yet the outcome does not match the effort. I am Dolan. Money Signals does not exist to tell you that you spend poorly. It exists to help you understand why today's cost structure makes so many middle-class earners feel poorer even when they earn more. If you have ever wondered why you keep feeling left behind despite doing everything right, this video is built for that exact question. In the rest of this episode, you will not hear generic advice about skipping coffee or working longer hours. Instead, Money Signals will help you see the larger forces quietly shaping your financial life every single day. In this video, you will understand why feeling poorer as a middle-class earner is not a psychological illusion, but a measurable outcome of housing, healthcare, education, and consumer debt rising faster than real income. You will see how the modern cost system changes the meaning of earning more money, and why so many people with average to above average incomes still do not feel secure. More importantly, you will learn how to read money signals rather than fixating on your salary number. Money Signals does not focus on how much you earn. It focuses on how many choices you have left after fixed costs are paid. That difference explains why two people with similar incomes can feel completely different about their financial lives. I will guide you through each layer of this problem, starting with the broader economic context, and then moving into the specific mechanisms that quietly erode middle-class progress. Every section is grounded in reliable data and real situations that working adults recognize immediately. The goal of this video is not to increase your anxiety. It is to help you understand where you actually stand. When you understand the system correctly, you stop blaming yourself for feelings you cannot control. That clarity is what allows better financial decisions to emerge naturally. There is a reason this feeling appears across industries, professions, and income levels. The financial environment surrounding the middle class has changed faster than most working adults can adapt, and this shift is not driven by a single factor. It is the result of multiple pressures stacking on top of each other. Federal Reserve data show that while nominal income has risen over the past decade, real income adjusted for living costs has grown slowly. During the same period, housing has become the largest expense for most middle-class households. Labor statistics consistently show that rent and home ownership costs have outpaced median wage growth across many cycles. When housing consumes a larger share of income, every other financial decision becomes constrained. Healthcare adds another layer of pressure. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, even people with employer-sponsored insurance are paying more through premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs. Financial risk does not disappear when you have a stable job. It simply becomes less visible. You may not see it immediately, but you feel it constantly. Pew Research finds that a growing share of middle-class adults describe their finances as just getting by, even when they believe they are doing better than the previous generation at the same age. This is where data and emotion intersect. On paper, things look fine. In daily life, they feel fragile. Picture a familiar situation. Your rent or mortgage is paid on time. Your insurance is active. Your credit card and student loan payments are current. Everything looks stable. But if 1 month of income disappears, or an unexpected medical bill appears, you are forced to adjust sharply. That is where the feeling of being poor comes from, not from lack of income, but from lack of buffer. Financial Times refers to this state as the silent squeeze on the middle class. There is no sudden collapse, just sustained pressure that makes people feel stuck while life becomes more expensive. When this feeling spreads, it stops being a personal issue. It becomes a system-level signal. That is exactly what Money Signals exists to decode. Income rises while fixed costs rise faster. The first reason the middle class feels poorer is not lower income, but reduced control over income. When salaries increase, many people believe they have moved forward. In reality, much of that increase is immediately absorbed by fixed expenses. Fixed costs are expenses you cannot easily reduce in the short term. Housing, healthcare, transportation, childcare, and long-term debt fall into this category. When these expenses occupy a larger share of income, financial flexibility shrinks even if total income grows. Federal Reserve data show housing costs rising faster than median income over multiple periods. Labor statistics also indicate that the share of income allocated to housing by middle-class households is significantly higher than 2 decades ago. Kaiser Family Foundation adds that healthcare costs continue to rise even for full-time workers. The key takeaway is not to fear costs, but to understand their structure. Evaluate your financial position by looking at fixed cost ratios, not just salary figures. If fixed obligations exceed what you can adjust when income changes, your choices narrow. Creating even a small, flexible buffer matters more than chasing higher pay without cost control. Lifestyle inflation happens quietly. Most people imagine lifestyle inflation as obvious overspending, expensive cars, luxury apartments, lavish travel. For today's middle class, lifestyle inflation rarely looks like that. It appears gradual, reasonable, and difficult to detect. Lifestyle inflation occurs when living standards rise faster than financial safety. The danger is that these upgrades are usually justified. A home closer to work, better insurance, a safer school district. None of these decisions feel irresponsible when made. Pew Research shows that most Americans believe the cost of maintaining a middle-class life has risen sharply. Federal Reserve data confirm that higher-income households have not meaningfully increased their savings rates over time. The damage is not higher spending, it is locked-in spending. Once a higher cost structure becomes normal, reversing it is extremely difficult. Flexibility disappears. The brain interprets that loss of flexibility as ongoing anxiety. The signal here is to recognize which upgrades become permanent obligations. Before any lifestyle increase, ask whether it reduces your ability to adapt later. A useful rule is to allow lifestyle growth only after safety has already improved. Reversing that order almost guarantees financial stress. Consumer debt fills the progress gap. When income rises without a sense of progress, many people unconsciously turn to consumer debt to bridge the emotional gap. This is not ignorance. It is a human response. You want your present life to reflect the effort you have already invested. Debt allows future money to appear today. Credit cards and installment plans preserve a desired lifestyle even when cash flow feels tight. The relief is temporary. The obligation is not. Federal Reserve Bank of New York data show record levels of consumer and credit card debt, with the fastest growth among prime working-age earners. CNBC reports that much of this debt is used for essentials, not luxury spending. When debt supports lifestyle rather than long-term value, it creates a trap. Interest erodes future income. Monthly payments become new fixed costs. Safety margins shrink further. The signal is not whether you carry debt, but what role it plays. If debt sustains stability rather than builds future capacity, the cost structure is already misaligned. Tracking debt ratios and limiting non-productive debt restores clarity. Income rises while risk does not fall. Many people expect higher income to mean greater safety. For many middle-class earners, the opposite happens. They earn more but feel more exposed. Risk is not measured by income. It is measured by shock absorption. A high earner with rigid expenses and thin buffers is more fragile than a lower earner with flexibility. Federal Reserve surveys show many middle-income households struggle with unexpected expenses. OECD research confirms rising household financial instability as living costs increase. The danger is that everything looks stable on the surface. Bills are paid, jobs are secure, accounts are positive. But underneath, adaptability is gone. The signal is the gap between feeling stable and being resilient. Shifting focus from income maximization to shock capacity changes everything. Emergency buffers, reduced rigid commitments, and diversified income sources reduce perceived poverty faster than pay increases alone. Social comparison distorts progress. Even when finances do not worsen, feeling poor can emerge through comparison. Social media and professional environments reshape what success looks like. People stop comparing present to past self. They compare to curated versions of others. The brain registers falling behind without context. Pew Research links social media exposure to increased perceived financial pressure among middle-income adults. Behavioral finance studies show people evaluate living standards relative to peers rather than needs. This pressure drives defensive decisions, lifestyle upgrades, credit expansion, delayed saving. Not because of poor discipline, but invisible comparison stress. The signal is the difference between real progress and perceived progress. Replace external benchmarks with internal ones. Ask how many more choices you have than last year. Pressure fades when the measuring stick changes. Income rises while time and energy erode. One factor rarely counted in finances is mental energy. Income growth often comes with longer hours, higher expectations, and constant performance pressure. Money improves life only when it buys flexibility. When income growth consumes time and energy, its real value declines. OECD quality of life studies show higher stress among middle-income earners despite improved material conditions. Pew Research finds growing dissatisfaction with work demands relative to benefits. Fatigue leads to short-term decisions, convenience spending, planning avoidance. This is not failure, it is overload. The signal is the relationship between money and life control. Evaluate which commitments drain disproportionate energy relative to financial value. Optimizing energy often reduces financial stress before income changes at all. Social comparison distorts progress. Even when finances do not worsen, feeling poor can emerge through comparison. Social media and professional environments reshape what success looks like. People stop comparing present to past self. They compare to curated versions of others. The brain registers falling behind without context. Pew Research links social media exposure to increased perceived financial pressure among middle-income adults. Behavioral finance studies show people evaluate living standards relative to peers rather than needs. This pressure drives defensive decisions, lifestyle upgrades, credit expansion, delayed saving. Not because of poor discipline, but invisible comparison stress. The signal is the difference between real progress and perceived progress. Replace external benchmarks with internal ones. Ask how many more choices you have than last year. Pressure fades when the measuring stick changes. Income rises while time and energy erode. One factor rarely counted in finances is mental energy. Income growth often comes with longer hours, higher expectations, and constant performance pressure. Money improves life only when it buys flexibility. When income growth consumes time and energy, its real value declines. OECD quality of life studies show higher stress among middle-income earners despite improved material conditions. Pew Research finds growing dissatisfaction with work demands relative to benefits. Fatigue leads to short-term decisions, convenience spending, planning avoidance. This is not failure, it is overload. The signal is the relationship between money and life control. Evaluate which commitments drain disproportionate energy relative to financial value. Optimizing energy often reduces financial stress before income changes at all. Pause for a moment and look at the full picture. First, feeling poorer despite higher income is not a personal contradiction. Fixed costs rising faster than real income compress flexibility. Second, lifestyle inflation works quietly by locking in obligations before safety improves. Third, debt and comparison are responses to systemic pressure, not moral flaws. All signals point to one truth. Wealth perception is driven by flexibility and resilience, not income alone. The central lesson is simple. Income is no longer the correct measure of progress. True progress is measured by choice capacity after obligations are paid. The system rewards earning more but penalizes rigidity. Focusing only on income leads to running fast without moving far. Money signals teaches a shift from income to resilience. From how much you earn to how long you can function if plans fail. When the metric changes, behavior follows. Flexibility replaces pressure, and the feeling of being poor loses its grip. If you recognized yourself in this video, you read the signal correctly. If one idea stood out, leave a comment. Not a story, just the signal that resonated. If this helped you, Share it with someone who keeps feeling they should be doing better by now. In the next video, Money Signals will explore how to build real financial safety inside a high-cost system without chasing income endlessly. Thank you for staying with Money Signals. If there is one thing to remember, feeling poorer is not failure. It is feedback from a changed system. Money Signals exists to help you read that feedback calmly and clearly. I will see you in the next video, where we continue decoding the financial signals most people miss.